So what I'd like to do now is turn it over to our guest speaker, Zayn, who already introduced herself a little bit, but she is the director of the Voices of Youth Connect and the Voices of Youth Maps. She brings students together so they can discuss these really important issues, and it's wonderful that she's here. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to her so we can get started.
Thank you. Hello again, everyone. So yes, I run this project in UNICEF called Voices of Youth, and the point of this project is really to have young people being able to voice their opinions and also discuss important issues that are very important to them. So what we try to do with Voices of Youth is actually leave the whole UN, UNICEF, the usual issues, in a way, but go a little bit further and really ask young people to talk about things that are extremely important to them. For example, the issues of employment, issues of substance abuse. So there are so many important things that they want to discuss, and actually, they really believe that it's possible to make these changes because they are able to talk about these issues among themselves. So, and what we do as well is at UNICEF, we have a component, so youth engagement component, and what we try to do through initiatives like Voices of Youth Maps, which is a digital mapping project, and to tell you a little bit about the process, actually young people come up with a very important issue for them in their communities. They decide to find a way to map this issue. So what they do is actually so they develop these indicators, they take a photo of that specific issue, then the photo is being actually uploaded into a digital map, and then, they clean the data, they put everything together, and then present the findings to local authorities, and then the local authorities work together, develop a plan of action, and then address these issues. But what we've noticed all these years is that the young people arrive, with this, hope for change, etc., because also they've been mapping these issues, so they've been looking at these issues firsthand, and then they come to local authorities. Local authorities are very affected by these issues. They discuss them, they have a plan of action, and the plan of action kind of dies in the process. So we were like, no, we have to change this, because they look at them with a lot of affection. Oh, that's really sweet. So no. So it's very important for us that whatever they say, whatever they sow, really change. So we added something in between. We added something called an Activate bootcamp. So it sounds very military, but it's not like that. So what we did is we brought in experts on these specific issues. For example, if they focused on environmental risks, we brought in actually, for example, urban planners, people that work in in the field of on the environment, etc. So brought them, and we created these workshops that take either 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, depending on the time and how much can be done. And they discuss together plans of action before going into the authorities. So then the young people understand what could be actually be done and what cannot be done before going. So instead of giving this hope for young people, telling them, you have a voice, you can change everything, etc. No, we tell them, okay, discuss this. Let's see what can be done right now, what can be done in the long term, short term, really understanding also the issue in a deeper level, and then go to local authorities. And that has been proven more successful when we've done that. So these are the types of programs and the types of activities that we try to do when and the Voices of Youth is also a website. Voices of Youth is, so it's a website where young people can blog. And so on one hand, blogging for us, it's a reflection activity. So what they do is actually talk about the experience, share with everybody else, and also share best practices. So if a young person in Brazil is going to discuss how they've found a way to involve the local municipality into cleaning their streets, for example. Someone else in Kenya will read it and will say, okay, that's something that we could do in our own community. So let's see how we can make this happen. And then behind, so like I said before, that we don't really involve like the whole, the usual issues, UN, UNICEF, etc. But here, what's important when we are UNICEF is that we have an office in every country and territory. So we can get involved directly and try to mediate between the organizations, the young people, the experts, and the local authorities. So that's kind of like how we do youth engagement. So when I'm saying youth engagement, and it's very linked to peace education and human rights education, because instead of coming in front of young people and telling them, so Article 1 says, Article 2 says, Article 3, no, it's you tell me what do you think is actually needed, what it should be a basic right for you, what it should be important, what's important, what should be changed around you, and then let's find a way to work on it together, not only you and local authorities, but also your community, to make this change. And I just wanted to add that we also make sure that the young people understand that it's not their responsibility neither. It's not everything falls on you, and it's your responsibility to make. If you want to change the world, you have to do it. It's on you. You're the new generation. All these years we have done, we made our planet what it is today, but now it's on you to change it and make it better. No. We don't actually look at the issues in that lens. We really make sure everyone has what can you do? What could be your role in changing the world and making it better? So this is one very important component. The other thing that I wanted, I don't know how much time I have, if I have more time or not, but. Oh, yes, no, I will do that. I just wanted to say something very important before I forget, because, I know that we have been, for some of us, are educators, teachers for years, or human rights activists. We do get a little bit cynical, because with all these years of very often seeing a lot of disappointments, at the same time many changes, but also disappointments, I think it's extremely important that when we work with young people to make sure that we don't bring that in, because it's really easy for us to see all the things that didn't work and forget a little bit about the things that did work, because the ones that don't work are so big and on our face every day. So I think it's important to give them actually that choice and give them all the time to get cynical if they get cynical or not, but really make sure that no, actually it's actually possible, and give them what's important here. It's not to give them all this information on, like I said before, Article 1, Article 2, Article 2. No, it's really to be able to discuss things, go back and forth, because young people are very creative, have a lot of things to bring in, things that we have, even though we've been human rights activists working in this field for years, we have never thought about a lot of things. And actually, they have so much to bring. And imagine young people from different places around the world. You can imagine how many interesting things can be brought up, right? So we really have to make sure that we give them the choice and the tools to be able to discuss human rights, to understand them in a way that how they see them in their own communities, how they see them every day, and actually tell them, well, that's a human rights violation. Let's discuss it. Why is it a human rights violation? How can we How can we look at it? You use film to that's the lens, that's the tool that you use for young people to look at these issues, to go in depth into these issues. Documentary film, so they talk to people, they interview people, they look at it in different ways. So be creative as well. Look at different ways to discuss these issues with the young people. You talk about bullying, right? You talk about bullying. It's such a huge issue. It's a global issue. It's all over the world. Young people are going home and they don't know how to address it. They cannot talk to their teachers. They cannot talk to their principal. They cannot talk to their parents, their families, because they're feeling ashamed, because they think they're not strong enough. They think, there are so many issues. How can you do? I don't know. Maybe using skits, using theater to talk about these issues. And looking at it from that direction, and also be connected with young people. Bullying is not only happening in the classroom; it's happening when they are online. And how are you going to know that? Because it's a box and they are in it. They're on their phone and it's happening, and you have no idea, because they're going to turn to you and say, "Yeah, I'm fine." And this is happening to them. So how do you address this? Well, you have to do a little bit of work on yourself, right? On yourselves, with your colleagues, discuss and say, okay, what am I doing right now to address these issues? Is my strategy working? Is this something that really changes? Self-evaluate, because it's true that we come in and we have these beliefs and we feel them and we feel very strongly about them, and we know that what we are doing is right and is great and it's working, but really self-evaluate, self-criticize, say, okay, maybe what I'm doing is not working, or it is working, let's do it better, let's change it. And the best way to do that, it's of course to have a conversation with the young people that you're working with, to tell them, well, is this working? Do you think it's fun what we are doing? Do you think it's actually changing? Do you see something happening, or we are just here to do business as usual, So it's very important to be honest and transparent and very sincere with the young people, and really admit when you are doing something that is not working, and find ways to make it work with them. So this is what I wanted to say in general, and here in the last part, I brought in a lot of the experience I had with my nonprofit called Dounia Project, that I started in Morocco, the US, in Brazil, and actually in the US, it was in New York and in California, in Northern California. And the project, the idea was to have a space for young people to discuss issues, to look at the issues, but not only the issues. So, for example, we would come one day and we talk about corruption, right? So corruption in Brazil is not corruption in the Bronx. It's not corruption in Casablanca, Morocco. It's not the corruption in a Native American reservation in California. It's not the same way. It doesn't work the same way. But we do have a discussion about it, and we learn from each other. I'm not saying that after that we don't talk about Chris Brown and Rihanna, and we do have a conversation about that too, because this is what we are enjoying also every day. So that was the point of Dounia Project. But also the point was to admit that in many educational systems we are not in sync with what's required to get a job later. Many of our educational systems work that way around, and I'm talking about around the world. So when you have young people that don't know how to use, for example, social media, when you have so many jobs available in that field, especially when you look all over Africa, Central, Northern, Southern Africa, the Middle East. These are jobs out there in Europe, anyway, everywhere. These are the jobs that are really demanding from young people. Also, to know another language. It's very important to at least speak 2 languages. That's the minimum you need. And we don't think about teaching our young people to speak another language. Teaching our young people to communicate in a globalized world. To understand cultural sensitivities, to understand, when we have conversations on Dounia Project, actually the young people talk via Google Hangouts, so it's video conferences, right? They talk to each other. And sometimes the kids in the Bronx would ask the kids in Casablanca, oh, so you're wearing a veil. So that means like you supra religious, you like an ISIS kind of person, So they would ask questions like that. They are valid questions because, they don't. This is when you're gonna learn. Otherwise, you will have your own perspective on things, and you never open your mind to anything else. And this is very important when you have these discussions. Imagine being able, looking at you because you were talking about bullying, but imagine being able to say, well, in my school, this is what's happening to me. Well, me too. It's happening to me in that way. Well, you know who's bullying me? When you're going to go talk to the kids in Morocco, and this is a conversation that we had, my teacher is bullying me, and that's a different discussion. Oh, really? Your teacher? Like who you talk to then when you have such an issue. We talked about, I came one day and I said, okay, we're going to do something. Our theme right now is going to be violence in schools. We're going to talk about violence in schools. Like, great, let's talk about that. So it was very interesting. So everyone, in the US, everyone was talking about bullying. In Brazil, the young people were talking about gang violence, about drugs, etc. So that's the violence that they are obligated to sell drugs in school, etc. So some of them wanted to discuss that. In Morocco, they talk about, right away, it was obvious, the teacher beating them because they did not give the right answer. So that was like right away. And they had a conversation about that. And, and everybody was like, oh my God, like, this is, and everybody had valid and very important problems around that. And it was really important that, the Philippines!
Our lessons for children, so that's a very easy way to learn.
Oh, yes.
Hi, can you guys hear us?
Non-abuse, okay.
All right, well, we're going to keep going. Just give us a holler when you all are situated, okay?
Okay. Okay, we'll try to connect right now.
So just to finish, and just to tell you that it's important that the young people understand different perspectives in order for them to be able to really succeed in a globalized world and succeed here. I'm not saying making tons of money, and that's not what I mean. I mean succeed as a human being with dignity. That's I think the most important. And in order for them to do that, they do have to understand what are their rights and to be able, like I mentioned before, to realize them. But also understand where the world in which they live in. Maybe some of us are resistant, but we are living in a digital world, in a real digital world. So this is important to go into digital. Don't fight it. Don't fight it. It's there. You can't, because it's right there, right? Use media. Use digital tools the best way you can. When I'm saying about young people mapping, they use actually phones to map, right? So they use GPS technology, right? It's important and it's fascinating for them because that's their everyday lives. And you can't tell them, well, no, take a piece of paper and we're going to be... No, you can't do that anymore, right? And you have to let them communicate. Young people are thirsty. They want to communicate. They want to talk. They want to exchange ideas. They want to find solutions, and they want to make it happen. And they know they can. And really, hope is, I'm sure all of you still have a lot of hope, and we all do, even though, like I said before, we get cynical, but we all do. We still believe in it, otherwise we won't be here right now. We'll be doing something else. So we have to continue. We have to continue talking to young people and pushing them and tell them that's possible. Things are possible. Let's continue, because in the past, if people hadn't do that, we wouldn't be where we are today. People did fight. They always fought. And it's always good to give the young people examples. Not the usual ones, go a little bit out of that, someone that in your community. Yourselves. Just give them your example, your story. Who you are, what you did, why you're doing this, why. And that's extremely important to connect. So just to close, I said that like 4 times. I'm never closing, actually. But yes, just to close is just to make sure you let young people communicate among themselves. That's very important. Teach them about their rights in a unconventional way, and really let them express themselves and trust them. Trust them that they're going to come up with things that you have never ever thought of. So that's my conclusion. And if you have any questions, thank you.
All right. Well, I'd like to welcome our friends in Makati. We're so glad that the equipment is up and running and you're able to join us. While you all get situated, I'm going to ask if there's any questions for our speaker from Mexico City. So, Mexico City, do you have any questions for Zayn?
No, we don't. Thank you very much. We enjoyed your talk very much.
Thank you. All right. How about here in New York? Does anyone have a question for Zayn? Oh, we have a comment here and a question there. So we'll start and then...
Zayn. I just wanted to say that I really loved what you said, because right now I'm in between the youth and the adult age, and and I've always been the type of person where it's like, no, I can do it, no, I'm going to do it, but I'm starting to come where surrounded by people, no you can't, it's a lot of obstacles, so it can become very overwhelming, but I'm still at the place where I still believe that I can, so I try to surround myself by people around my age or younger, so to kind of move forward, and we are, so I just wanted to say that piece. So, yeah.
All right, question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know about the Dounia project that you were talking about. How do you spell that, first of all?
It's Dounia. So Dounia means the world in Arabic. It's also my mom's name. And in many other languages, actually, so in Swahili means like the soil, the earth. It also means Dunias in Greek means the people of the world. So that's why I chose that name. And the Dounia project, actually, what we do is give skills that are actually lacking in the educational system. So language classes, social media, different introduction to digital tools, and global communication. Voilà. And then, and at the same time, we focus a lot on media. So what we do is we have 2 projects, which is one is a web TV project. So they create their own young people. They create their own TV show in a way, and talk about the issues, for example, in their high school, and they interview young people in their high school and have a conversation. And then they have their own channel, so they show to their peers what they've been talking about, and some places have followers and on. And then we also have a podcast, initiative. So then the same thing, they create a show. The young people create show, and they're being followed by their peers.
Did that work grow from your work at UNICEF, or
No,
were they kind of
it was
separate?
separated. Actually, I was able to work at UNICEF because I was doing that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh, that's great. Sounds great.
Thank you.
Can I just understand? So, I'm sorry. Great talk. So motivating. But I'm trying to figure out, so what you will do is you will connect with people all over who just contact you and say, we really want to get started on this particular project, and then you work with them to formulate a program.
Yes. So far, we are starting to do that. But so far, all the schools that have all the after school programs actually that we connected, I actually went physically and met with people and teachers and contacts that I had. So I chose Brazil because it's really nice destination. No? Like the beach and everything. No, I'm joking. No, I'm just really attached to the country, and also I chose places where I speak the language. So I speak Portuguese, I speak French, Spanish, Arabic. So I was in English. So I was thinking it would be easier for me to facilitate the exchanges between the young people if I'm able to understand the language and translate for them whenever it's possible. But then, like I said before, I also push the young people to learn another language. So we try to have all the conversations in English. But then when they want to go fast, they use their own languages. And also I wanted to add that they also have a chat room where we just use Facebook. We're developing a parallel platform, but for now they're using Facebook, and they use the chat to talk and say, okay, I'm working on this, and we have Facebook groups, so this is where they post their work and comment on each other's work. But now what we want to do is actually engage schools, after school programs, clubs, youth organizations to come actually to us. And to come to us, so it's like an application process, and we are finding a way actually to connect them either with one other school in another country, like let's say the children are interested in talking with kids specifically that are in in France, and they want to communicate with each other. So we will connect only these two schools, and we will have someone to facilitate the conversation. So we have community managers and facilitators to make sure that it's actually projects are being built, etc. So it's not just hi, bye. No, right. We want to make sure something happens. Sure.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. You spoke about on the connections with youth and talking about human rights on a global aspect. And obviously that has a tangible impact on one's life itself, especially coming from a youth myself. I could kind of see how it could influence the impact, especially with building connections. But so are these youths, my question is, are these youths actually going to go out and be active inside the community to kind of foreshadow, on a global aspect, but also here on the human rights that we have, especially with women's equality and certain things like that, as you know, that we struggle on a regular basis?
The job of teachers and educators is really to change the lives of young people and to give them actually the tools and tell them how this is what you could use to change the world and to make it better. And when we say changing the world, you start with your community to do that, right? And if a young person is not interested and it's not happening and it's just not happening, right, for several reasons, that you cannot say, okay, when we have these programs, for sure all of the participants become like big activists and change the communities, etc., and focus on the communities and everything. So we can't assure that, right? We can't assure that, but our job is to make sure that everyone that we meet, that comes into our classrooms, come into our programs, actually become activists, and really change the issues in the community. So about the global perspective, in order for them to understand the global perspective, young people have to understand the local perspective, the local issue itself. So when you talk about issues of violence, of women's rights, it's different everywhere. The issue is different everywhere. But then you get to see it differently in your own community. Like, I had a group of young people who thought that if someone is talking to you on the street, to a girl on the street, like, smile, baby, come on, oh, how pretty, look, and they thought it was normal. It's okay. The guys, they're playing around. Oh, it's not normal, because that brings in other issues, and that's not acceptable. Nobody's supposed to talk to you if you don't want someone to talk to you, So these are issues that, young girls face everywhere. And I'm not even going to go into, like, unequal pay and, like, all the, sexual violence and, gender-based violence. There is a whole UN agency, UN Women, just on that, that really focuses, and of course, and organizations. But that's why I say it's very important to look at the issue locally and look at it also globally, to understand. Not to say, okay, this is business as usual, this is okay, what's happening to me is okay. It's not okay, and that's it. I hope I answered your question. I went all over the place, sorry. Yeah? Okay.
Wait, one more?
Well, I really agree with everything you say, that the hope is with the next generation and the new generation. But when you were talking about that people a lot vote, they voted against, like, do they fight, like, who's the first enemy for these new activists? Is it the governments, or are they the society themselves, or is it education? Like, why we don't see these activists nowadays? Because I know these programs didn't start last year. They started a long time ago. So we have people that they're mature enough, or they're rolling something right now. But what is the biggest struggle for them?
Oh, that's an excellent question. The thing is, it's again, it depends, and it's different everywhere. And the point is not to look at one common enemy or one enemy. It doesn't work. I don't think it works that way. It works it works as, instead of, maybe I shouldn't say fight against, it's more like defend and make better. What's around you. But I'm not gonna say, for example, that in 2011, when the Arab Spring started, and then you had all these countries going, saying, okay, we don't agree with what's going on around us in our communities and in our country, or then, well, it spread into Mexico, and then Hong Kong after, and then the US, everywhere, people looked around and say, okay, something is wrong. They went into one direction. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes so it works more or less in Tunisia, then not so much in Egypt. And, so it just different ways to do things. But then again, you have NGOs, you have, and who are these people that actually going to creating an NGO or going to working for NGOs and, give work for free, right? Many volunteer for NGOs, etc. Give their free times to teach after school, to teach immigrant youth, to and to fight for their rights, in that sense. So these are all these were all either. Again, it's like very, I'm generalizing, but I'm saying, like, some people that went into these programs, other people that actually grew up in, like, a family of activists. Like my case, I grew up in a family of activists, so it was no way I was gonna be like, oh, I don't care, impossible, because my mom would tell me, no, it's Sunday morning, we're gonna go, we have to go volunteer, Ali, up, let's go, and so that was not gonna happen, and and everyone has an influence or something in the community. So whatever we could do, just like that little drop, that we could do to really make that change, we have to do it. And again, I'm saying fighting for your rights. It's also the fact that it's not mainstream. Mexico, I arrived at the end, but what's mainstream, what you see on TV every day, what you see in media, in people's conversation, it's not that your rights are being violated, Maybe you hear about war, conflict, but you don't hear about your rights being violated. And you don't hear about what are your rights, actually. How can you change them? And so they don't exist. So we're fighting against, in a way, like a culture, a culture of not wanting to know what's happening, of many artificial things actually taking over other things that are important. And I'm not saying artificial things are not important. They're important for some and not for others. You know, it's already pejorative that I'm saying artificial. So what I mean is that we have to fight against a culture that tells you, you don't have to move, you don't have to make a change, you don't need to make a change. You were saying earlier that you have people that telling you, you can't. Well, we fight against that. You can't. You know, it's just, I just want to give a quick example. I know I'm over time. I know, I see your eyes. Sabrina, I know. I just want to give a quick example. When I started my NGO Dounia Project, I started in Morocco. Two, I have because I had to have a paper, you know, like a 501c3 kind of, you know, equivalent. And because I couldn't, when I went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and I told them, well, I want to make this organization, it's amazing, you know, people talk to each other. And he was like, no, thank you. Okay. So I was like, all right, fine. Okay. So I'm going to go and I'm going to create my own NGO locally and everything. So I went and I did all the paperwork and then I arrived. Not the right paperwork. And I'm like, okay, can you just write them down, maybe? So then I can have a checklist, you know? No. Okay. So then I went back and forth. And then I went in and I had all the paperwork and everything was ready. And every year, actually, the thing was that every year, what we had to provide is your criminal records, right? So you have to give your criminal records, everyone that's involved in the organization. So you give your criminal records. And then the thing is that they expire after 3 months. So after 3 months, they tell them, you just saw them. Again, you're going to have to do it again. And we did that for 5 years. Because what I wanted to make sure that we do, the reason this happened for 5 years and it could happen in a minute is that if we had an envelope with money, it would have happened right away. We would not have anything to worry about. Our organization will be legal right away. No. And I was like, no, because the example that I want to give to the young people is that we are not going to do this. We are never going to give money. Corruption is something that we are not going to do in our, you know, environment. So it's not going to happen, and we can change the world. And you see, we're going to wait, and we're going to get them by going every 3 months. Every 3 months we went and did that. We spent a lot of money that could have been used for better things, but we did it. And we actually were recognized after 5 years of going back and forth to them. So that's what I mean, fighting against a lot of things. Yeah.
Keep fighting. Keep fighting. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.